prepared to get 45 off 33 balls, 32 balls, and see the game over the line. And that was a challenge for the likes of Stokes, Butler, other people that played in the middle order, to be the people to see the game home. And Ben Stokes, I think in many ways, showed that not only in the World Cup final, but he showed that in that innings that he played at Headingley against Australia in the Ashes. That for me is what resilience is about. It's about taking control of a situation, understanding what you can do in that situation to not only help yourself, but help other people around you. And I think Stokes in that final showed that he was going to make sure that he was there at the end to give England the best chance of winning the game. And for me, that sums up, an international world-class athlete showing real high-class resilience for the benefit of his team.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody in the group would have watched that game, and what a game it was, and what a great example of resilience. So beautiful. I mean, over the years, Paul, made a few notes. You've worked with under-19s, you've worked with schoolboys, you've worked with the ladies, you've worked with first teams as an assistant and then head coach, and now obviously director of cricket at Edgbaston for Warwickshire. You've seen cricket in various different roles and responsibilities. Tell me where else you've seen some examples of resilience and you've just thought, it's really sort of showing itself, and what it looked like to you.
Well, I think most days you come across resilience, and you come across tough situations. And I think one of the exciting things about coaching is that you get to see people. As I said, cricket's a game where you don't have millions of fantastic days. You have a lot of tough days. And there's nothing better for me than watching a player practicing and working at their game and showing that they have got the desire and the drive to keep improving. And it's really easy for us as coaches to talk to players about, come on, show that you want to improve. Have you got that coachability? Have you got that desire to be the best you can be? And to be the best you can be takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of determination. It takes a lot of being out of your comfort zone. It's not easy to keep practicing, certainly in a team and group situation, keep practicing and getting things wrong and being prepared to go backwards, to go forwards. And I think that takes a lot of resilience to do that. Bob Woolmer, who I think is probably the best coach I've ever worked with. And Bob would definitely have people around the world who would say, without a shadow of a doubt, the best coach. And Bob used to talk about upward and downward spirals. And he used to talk about a lot of players look at their game when they're in a downward spiral. So things are not going well and they're struggling, and they start to analyse their game. He was a big believer in analysing your game on the upward spiral. So when things are going well and you take confidence from your practice and you take that practice confidence into your next game, and what you've worked on, you start to see semblances of that working well for you in the game, take that confidence into your next practice session, and then take it into your next game. And as you're playing well and you're enjoying the way that you're playing and you're enjoying the way that you're practicing, that's the time to really think about your game, understand your game. And a lot of the times, for us as coaches, we talk about, I've asked many international players over the years, when did you really understand your game? When did you really know your game? And I think what the answer to that is when they understood their practice to allow them to be the player that they are. So Mahela Jayawardene would tell you that regular in Sri Lanka's Test match team, but was in and out of their one-day team because he batted with his ego. He played lots of shots. He wanted to show people how good a player he was, but he wasn't prepared to actually sometimes just dig in and show a bit of resilience, understand what the situation needed from him at that particular time. In Test match cricket, he got it very easily. I asked the same question to Mark Ramprakash. Mark Ramprakash reckons he was 27 or 28 before he really understood his game. Now, he went on to play first-class cricket in England till, virtually the age of 40, scored 100 hundreds. And probably the last person ever do that. And maybe if that desire to drive yourself on, to be the best you can be, and every single day work as hard as you can be. It sounds easy, and we all say to players, come on, it's about working hard. You can't work hard every day, but you can show a certain amount of improvement every day if you've got the resilience and the guts and the drive to actually want to do it. And as I say, it's not easy.
And Paul, you spoke about there a couple of things about players that showed it, and in different formats and in different ways. I guess for a lot of us, we're working with players, some international players, but then through to players of a junior level. Is it something that can be taught, or is it something that just happens? Is it something that just developed over time in your experience?
Well, I think if players keep coming back, whatever age, whatever stage of their game they're at, that they're already showing a certain amount of resilience because they keep coming back. And your players vote with their feet. You as coaches know that players vote with their feet, and that certain coaches, it doesn't matter who you are, certain coaches, players, their relationship is a lot better. And in all the teams that I've worked in, we've had batting coaches, bowling coaches, fielding coaches, but the players don't always go to that coach with that technique. They might go to somebody else who they relate to better. So the fact that they're coming back, the fact that these players continue with their sessions, they're already showing a certain amount of resilience. They're showing that they want to keep going. And, it's easy to think of resilience as, tough, hard, got to get stuck in, you got to fight. Actually, there's nothing wrong with, thinking about resilience in a slightly different way. And resilience isn't just a case of, as I say, fighting, getting stuck in, gnashing your teeth and sweating or whatever. Actually, just thinking about your game, understanding your game, sitting back sometimes, watching the game being played. And I think one of the things that we don't do that well is actually watch other players and watch other coaches and learn from them. And I'll give you a good example. I have a guy who mentors me, and he's mentored me now for quite some time. And I wish I'd met him a lot sooner because he has been absolutely fantastic for me. And he was watching a game on television. I was involved in a game in Antigua with England, and England were batting, and there was a few of the lads were sat around me, and he noticed that on the television pictures, I was chatting a lot while watching the game with these players. And I spoke to him the day after, and he said, "Have you ever thought about watching the game through your players' eyes?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, every time I watched the TV yesterday during the game, you were talking and the players were laughing and chatting, but you were talking. Think sometimes about when you're watching a game, sit quietly and listen to the players talking about the game and how they're seeing the game, and see if actually your thoughts are matching up with their thoughts. Because players are very good at talking during a game. They chat about what they're seeing. They talk about the way the bowlers bowl in the field that's set, the way the batters are batting. So actually, I think that's quite a good thing for players sometimes, just to watch, to listen, watch how other people practice, watch how other people talk about the game, and actually watch other players playing the game around the world. Josh Butler is a great one for watching the game and learning from players. And I think that's a big thing. I think coaches, we facilitate the learning, but I think that it's players who actually do the teaching, and players watch and learn from other players. And I think that's really important. And sometimes as a coach, you have to say, and there's nothing wrong with saying to a player, "I don't know the answer to your question. Leave it with me and I'll find out." There's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to know all the answers. But I do think it's important that we look at resilience in that way as well. And we say, that players that turn up every day, players that practice every day, they're not going to be 100% every day, but they may go away with something if they're still keen to learn and improve. And it may be that they actually haven't improved that day, physically, technically, tactically, but they may have seen something in someone else that they bring back to their practice the next day or their next session the following Tuesday or Thursday night, and actually try and put that into practice and learn from other people around them.
Awesome. Some beautiful stuff there, Paul. Thank you. Paul, I've seen a few things, and I'm sure all the coaches in here and all the players in here have seen some stuff that they've thought, "Oh, that's a really nice idea." And one of the things that I saw a couple of years ago was England training in Dubai, and they had a speaker on with crowd noises, with right behind the stumps, as loud as they could possibly put it. And I guess they're sort of some of the tactics that they use to build resilience in a game atmosphere. Is there any that you've come across and you've worked with that haven't worked or have worked similarly?
Yeah, look, I've seen, and I'm like you, and like a lot of coaches, we watch other teams and we watch how they practice, we watch how they prepare, and it's easy to think about pinching ideas from other coaches, but I think you have to think about what's going to work for your team at that particular time, and I think that's an awareness thing for all of us as coaches. You see things, and it's a bit like, you go on a conference for a couple of days and you hear people from other sports talking, and your mind's racing as a coach, and you think, yeah, I'm going to use that. And it's really easy just to dump stuff on your players. And I think in sort of that situation where you're trying to, practice hard, play easy. That was another Mark Ramprakash saying. He used to say that a lot to our batsmen. And Ramps was someone who, and I'll take you to the last Ashes series we played in Australia. It didn't go very well for us as a team, but I would like to think one of the things that we spent the month building up to was trying to work on players' resilience. And we'd identified about 3 months before we went to Australia that their 3 points of attack were going to be the left arm pace, thunderbolts of Stark, Nathan Lyon bowling round the wicket into the hip, and the short balls that the Australian pace attack were going to pepper our batters with. And so they were the 3 key things that we'd identified before we went to the Ashes series. And we talked a lot to our batters about how they were going to play the left arm attack of Stark, over the wicket, round the wicket. We talked a lot about Lyon bowling around the wicket to our right-handers, trying to hit them in the hip with a leg gully or short leg in, how we were going to play them, how we were going to play him. And then we talked about playing the short ball. And one of Ramsey's drills that he used was with the dog sticks that most of us coaches have now. And I have to say, bar none, the best coaching invention that's ever come in my time involved in cricket. Because people like me who haven't got much of an arm can still generate some decent pace with the dog sticks. And Ramps had bags and bags of yellow balls, which were basically the indoor cricket balls. So they got a soft outer but a hard inner. And he peppered our batsmen from over and around the wicket. So much so that he got into he actually got into the net, and he got into the batsmen's faces, and it wasn't a chat, it wasn't nice. And we spent a lot of time splitting our group into 3. So we would have a net against bowlers, and we would ask our net bowlers to try and bowl in certain ways to replicate how the batsmen were going to face those bowlers in the match. We had a throwdown net where people were just hitting balls and feeling good and working out how they were going to play. And then we had Ramps with others in the far net who were just literally trying to knock people's heads off. And, so it was a case of trying to get them ready for every given situation. And I'll take you back to one bit of advice that I heard from Ian Healy. Prasanna Jayawardene, who's our keeper of Sri Lanka, he'd had a particularly good series in Australia. And Ian Healy asked me one day, he was doing commentary, asked me if he could come and have a chat with Prasanna. I said, that'd be fantastic, be brilliant. So we had a chat one morning in Hobart, day 3 of the test match. And Healy talked to Prasanna about never being surprised by anything that happens in a game. And he said that when he started off with the Australian team, the coach used to just hit 100 catches at him, one to his right, one to his left, one up there, one down there. And he thought, because it was just smashing lots of balls, it was building his resilience, it was building his skill. It wasn't, because he was getting into no rhythm whatsoever. So Healy told us this story that of a morning on a test match day, he would take his golf ball and his inner gloves and he would go and find a wall. And majority of the time he would do it in the mornings in the hotel car park. And he would throw the golf ball onto the wall and he would have his inner gloves on and he would just practice keeping to, so it was day 2 of a test match in England. And he would be imagining the golf ball being Glenn McGrath bowling leg cutters to the England batters. So it was important for him that he stayed balanced, because anybody who's kept wicket will know that if someone's running the ball into a right-hander, your tendency is to get your weight on your left foot. The nick then goes to your right and you can't get across to your right-hand side. So his was about imagining McGrath bowling leg cutters and which way his body would be moving. So he was preparing for what was happening. He then went on to talk about when the game got to day 4, day 3, day 4, day 5, and Warne came into the game bowling his wrist spinners. He said there was a period where Warne bowling round the wicket, and he would say to Mark Taylor as captain, "I'm going to bowl round the wicket." And Healy would hear this and say, "No, no, no, you're going well over the wicket, stay over the wicket." Because it was easier for him as a keeper, for him bowling over the wicket. It was easier to see the ball. It was easier to read the turn. And he used to talk Warne out of bowling round the wicket, not because tactically it was the right thing to do, but because it was tougher for him as a keeper. So he said, what I had to do was then go and, so on days 4 and 5, I would throw the ball at an angle and practice almost peering around the batsman to see the ball, spitting out of the rough, and then dealing with the take. So for me, that's a case of both of them, both Ramprakash with the batters and Healy with the keepers, is how you're building up your resilience. And that line of never being surprised by anything that happens on the field, I think is a great one for all of us, players and coaches. You know, as a coach, we should never be saying to our team after a game, "Lads, I didn't realise that was going to happen. I didn't know that he played that way." We should never be saying that. We should always be saying, we knew that was going to happen. We knew that was their plan. We play against players enough. We know how players play. And that's one of the things that, you know, I think even as a young player, even as an inexperienced player, when you go into bat and you take your guard, you look at the field and you work out how people are trying to get you out. So if you're going in opening the batting against a new ball and the opposition have got 3 slips in a gully, a point and a mid-off, there's every chance they're going to pitch the ball up and try and nick you off. If they've got 2 slips, a gully, and 3 on the offside, well, it might be more of a backward length. They're trying to hit a hard length at you. Now, you know, what you have to do as a batsman when you go in, you don't just take guard and look round and have a work out what the score is. You're sitting watching, you're waiting to go in, you're getting into the game, you're reading the game before you've already gone in. And more, with 20 over cricket now, you know, I think we talk to batsmen now about you've almost played your first 6 balls before you get to the crease, because you get into the flow of the game, watching the game. You don't just sit in the dugout or in the pavilion watching a 20 over game and thinking, I want to get out, I want to get out there. You sit there watching the game. How's the game going? How many overs has so-and-so got left to bowl? How many overs has he got to bowl? When he bowls, where's his boundary options? When he bowls, where are my single options to get me in and off the mark? How many has my partner got at the other end when I get in? He's going well. He's 25 off of 8 balls. I'm going to give him strike. I'm going to give him I'm going to get a few singles. I'm going to hit the ball nicely to get myself in, allow him to keep going. When I've hit a few off the middle, I'm off and running. And I think that's really important. That, again, for me, that's a form of resilience. That's understanding the situation, understanding what's needed from me in the game. And so often, and it happens a lot in limited overs cricket, a wicket falls, new batsman has just gone in, he's only faced 7-8 balls, new man goes in, and he plays big shots. And before you know where you are, you've got 2 new batsmen at the crease. What you need is actually to have an understanding of the situation, understanding of the game, and what is needed from me at this particular time of the game. So, you know, I think they're all really good examples of understanding what it is that you need to do as a player to be ready and never be surprised by the occasion of the game.
Beautiful. And Paul, we started going on to slightly more around the shorter format, and just want to take it one step back a second around a junior player, say a Colts player, or breaking into the second team, looking to progress. We obviously see a drop in that. There's a certain element of skill, and then we also see a drop with that grit, with that determination, whether it's to be at training, to be at wherever. Is it something you can see early on that you go, this lad's, he can get there with that resilience, with that determination, with that toughness? Is it something you can see?
Well, I think every player, and it doesn't matter what level you're working at, every player wants something different from you as a coach. But the only way you're ever going to find that out is to get to know them as people. And I think one of the skills that I think you learn is the more you find out about the player, the more you know what drives them. And every player has a different motivation for playing the game and trying to succeed. And every player has a different driver. They have different goals. And I think it's really important for you as a coach to understand what those goals are and what the drivers are for that player. So actually, what you can do is you use your experience to a certain extent that you've seen that player before. And every player, every team has the same players, the same characters. They just have different names. And I think what you do is you actually start to short circuit your working with those players, and you know what's coming. You can just tell from the way they are that things are on the turn. They're going to change, and you can preempt what's going to happen with them. But I think you can. I think you can teach it. I think you can learn it. But I think as a coach, the best thing that you can do is, rather than actually saying to a player, you know, this is what's happening, this is what we're going to do, it's actually you work the player out, you understand what they need from you, and then you choose the right language to work with them to help them get through that. And I'll give you one example of a player that has been in the England team in recent times, who is meticulous in his planning, meticulous in his thinking, watches an awful lot of footage, watches a lot of video. And if I had said to him, when he said to me, I've just seen something, I just want you to have a look at this. If I had said, don't worry about it, it's the worst thing I could have said. Absolutely the worst thing I could have said to him, because he does worry about it. He does need my help. He does need my support. And sometimes it's easy as a coach to say, don't disappear, you know, into theory. This player needs theory. And then other players who are more instinctive, if he came to you and said, I'm struggling, you say, you're not. There's nothing wrong with you. What are you doing? Just go and play. That's the way that you play. Yeah, okay, fine. And they just need you to tell them that. So I think if you know your player that you're dealing with, you can very much preempt that. And the only way that you're ever going to find out what your players need is to talk to them. And the greatest thing that you can do as a coach is listen to players talking. When they're playing, i.e. when they're watching, when they're practicing, when they finish their practice, when you get an opportunity during a match day, and we get lots of opportunities during a match day, to sit next to a player and chat to them, ask them questions, find out as much about them as you possibly can. Because when you understand them, it's much, much easier to help them. But you can't help them unless you actually really understand them. And you can lose players if you start using a language or words or behaving in a way towards them that they just absolutely hate. And I'll give you a great example. Gary Ballance. If I walked down the net when Gary Ballance was playing for Yorkshire or England, when he was batting on practice day, he would give me the filthiest look I've ever seen, which basically said, clear off, this is my time. If you want to talk to me later. And I learned very quickly with Gary, because I said to him one day, do you like talking about the game? He said, at the right time. And that was all I needed to know. So after that, if he was batting, even if I saw him doing something, 10 successive balls that I didn't quite like, I wouldn't tell him until he's finished his net, because it was a waste of time. He had no interest in me or any other coach at that particular time. So it is a case of working out and understanding your players before you try and help them.
Awesome. And obviously, speaking about, it's really interesting to hear a coach saying they're learning from their players. Obviously, we get sort of sidetracked in thinking that potentially, you know, we're the ones that are doing all the teaching, and quite opposite. You know, there's a lot to be learned from players.
Can I on that? Do you mind if I just jump in? Sorry to be rude, but I'll give you a great example of that. South Africa tour. The last time England went to South Africa before this recent one, so 3-4 years ago probably. Joss Buttler was playing. He was in the one-day squad, but he wasn't in the test squad. And we were playing the last test match in South Africa before the one-day series started. And Joss was there. He was in the squad. He was the second keeper to Johnny Bairstow. And one morning, the day before the final test, we were practicing, and we'd finished our practice. And he said, "Have you got 10 minutes?" So I said, "Yeah, of course." So we went down on the field, and the fielding net was up on the edge of the outfield. And he said, "I've been watching AB de Villiers dive." He said, "He dives differently, one side to the other." So I said, "Okay." So he said, "Look, when he dives to the right, this is what he does." So he said, "Roll me a ball." So I rolled a ball along the floor, and he dives to his right. He said, "When he dives to his left, though, he dives differently." So I said, "Well, look, I think this is what he does, but I'm not sure, but I think this is what he does." So I then showed him how he lands almost on his chest, a bit like John T. Rhodes used to. So to his right, he went on his side. To his left, he went on his chest. So he could use his dominant right hand to get to the ball. So we then spent the next 45 minutes diving and rolling around and trying different methods, purely based on just saying, "I want to work out AB de Villiers dives at backward point. And I might be able to use it in my keeping when I dive to the right and to the left. So I said, well, let's give it a go. So we started off on our knees, rolling balls to one another and diving off our knees and stopping balls. Then we went into a squat. Then we did it as a fielder with a bat. And then we started doing it as a keeper. And I said to him, I'm not quite sure that I know exactly, but I've got this picture in my head of how I think he dives. And we then spent 45 minutes working and playing with that. And then we carried on through the one-day series doing exactly that. So there's a great example, of an international cricketer having sat and watched as a 12th man through a test match series, how someone else did it in the opposition, and then saying, I like the way he does that. Do you reckon that can help my game? And he's kept it in his game ever since. So it's just a good example that players, even at that level, they definitely watch others.
For sure. Beautiful. Again, a great example for all of us. You've dug into players and organisations that you've worked. And I guess when I hear the word resilience, I think of the longer format. I don't know why. It's just something that I, assume that it's the test. It needs to be talked about. It's a longer batting times, things like that. But obviously that's completely wrong. And there's so much resilience shown in T20 cricket and 50 overs. Where do you see the biggest differences? Is it decision making, at the time, or where's the difference in resilience with an ODI player or a Test player?
Well, I think you're right, and I don't think you're wrong from what you said there. I don't think you are wrong. I think we all think of resilience as Test match cricket, 5 days. England have talked recently on their last few tours to New Zealand, South Africa. Then obviously they went to Sri Lanka and it got aborted. But Chris Silverwood has talked a lot about England playing what he described as old-fashioned cricket, and for the opening batsman to show some resilience, show some fight, see the new ball off. And there's absolutely no question that over the course of the South African series, the fact that, you had Stokes going in after 80 overs, Root going in after 30 overs. And the funny thing was that, the commentators were saying, this is great. This is what England needed to have been doing for the last 5 years. Well, we were trying to do that. We didn't just say to our batters, it'd be great if we were 30 for 3 again, lads, and let's make it a bit more exciting and interesting. We were actually saying, we need to see through the new ball. We need to play through that new ball. And with Alistair Cook, you had someone who, he might as well have resilience as his middle name, because Alistair Cook was all about getting stuck in, fighting for the cause, seeing off the new ball. He knew that was his job. He didn't look to drive through the offside, probably in his first 40 runs. He looked to let people come straight at him, clip off his hip. If they gave him a bit of width, he might have cut them, or he nudged it down to backward third man. But they were his scoring shots, and he was very resilient, very stubborn, very organised at the top of the innings for England. And then, as I say, over the winter, Sibley went from being in New Zealand, this bloke can't play Test cricket with his technique's not right, his feet are open, his chest down the wicket, he can't possibly play Test cricket this way. And then at the end of the South African series, within 3 months, people are saying, we found our opening batsman, we found a bloke who can bat time, show resilience, show guts, show character. And Rory Burns is another one I would put in that same category. So I think we do all automatically think about Test match cricket, but I'll take you back to, a 2020 game or a 50 over game. You still got to show resilience. You've still got to show that you are able to compete for that whole 20 overs or for the whole 50 overs. And as I say, one of Trevor Bayliss' big things he used to talk to the team about was actually playing smart cricket. And within smart cricket, in 50 over cricket, during that World Cup period, we started off back in 2015. We kept telling the world we had no plans, and we were just seeing where we could get to. No ceilings, no plans. If you have goals and plans, sometimes they can act as a bit of a ceiling. And we said, we're not doing that. We were at rock bottom as a team. We had to improve. We'd had a horrendous World Cup in 2015, and so we had to improve. And Trevor used to talk a lot to the players about, as I said right at the beginning, are you the person to see the game home? Have you got the courage to see the game home? And that takes resilience. That takes fight. I'll take you back to Stokes' World Cup innings, the final. You know, he wasn't looking to every ball out of St John's Wood for 4 and 6. You know, Ben Stokes, in many ways, over the last 2 years, his career has been about resilience. It's been about understanding the situation and showing fight and commitment for his team when it needed. And yet, when it also needed, he was quite happy to put his foot on the gas and hit the ball over long on and smash it over deep mid-wicket and reverse sweep the ball over backward point for 6. He could do all that, but actually it was about understanding when he could do that and when he couldn't do that, and when his team needed him to bat through a tough period. So, you know, you might go in a one-day game, and Josh Buttler's innings against Australia at Old Trafford, he showed an unbelievable amount of resilience. Final game of the series, England 4-0 up in 2018, and he batted and shepherded the tail through to 100 to chase down 220 to win the last game and win the series 5-0. Now, he could have got out playing big shots and got 30 and got out, and we'd all say, oh, well, you know, game was beyond it. He didn't. He buckled down. He knocked it around. He batted sensibly. He knew he had plenty of time. He used up overs, which dot balls in any form of one-day cricket can cause panic in your head. So, you know, you go in a T20 game and you don't score for the first 3 balls. How often we see then the 4th ball go straight up in the air because the batsman feels under pressure? Well, the other side of that is showing some resilience, showing some guts, showing some nous and saying, it's okay, I've got this. It doesn't matter if after 5 balls, I've got 2 or 3 runs, because after 10 balls, I know that I'll have 20 runs. And after 15 balls, I'll have 28 or 30 runs. So actually showing a bit of resilience when I first go in, showing a bit of understanding of the situation, a bit of nous, allows me then to take the game onto the next level, or my game onto the next level. But if I don't give myself chance, then I've got absolutely no chance. And so therefore, you know, the one-day game is now about people showing resilience. It's about them showing an understanding. And for me, understanding guts, nous, understanding your game is all wrapped up in resilience, really.
Fantastic. And Paul, you started to talk a little bit there about the journey that you went on with players from sort of 2013 and what a journey that was. Where did it start? How did it start? And how did you put the building blocks in place to sort of get them from where they were, obviously dropping out of the World Cup in sort of quite poor form and a bit of a disastrous tournament, to 2019 and doing what they did. So can you give us a little bit of an insight into the building blocks that you put in place and as a team and as an organisation, how you did that?
Yeah, look, I think the important thing is to say that we knew when we went to that World Cup in 2015 in Australia and New Zealand that we were 7th in the world in terms of rankings. And we knew that the best we could hope for, absolute best we could hope for, was to get to the knockout stages and try and nick a knockout stage game and try and get ourselves through that way. I don't think we ever went to that tournament thinking we could win that tournament. And history tells you that if you're outside the top 3 going to a World Cup in the world rankings, you're probably not going to win it. And so we decided that we needed to be in the top 2 or 3 going into the 2019 World Cup. And England for 2 years out were number 1 in the world for 2 years. So that was important. There's 2 parts to it, really. One was dealing with the pressure of being the favourite in a home World Cup. And that was something that we picked up on from 2017 onwards. But the 2015-2017 period, as I say, was all about picking people who would play for the team. And I'll give you a great example. And again, this fits nicely into the resilience story. Jason Roy played in that 2015 first series at home after the World Cup against New Zealand. We played New Zealand in 5 one-dayers. He was out first ball in the first game at Edgbaston. He hardly got any runs, but he kept playing for the team all the way through. And the one thing that Owen Morgan had talked to the team about was playing the way that you play for your county and sticking true to your way of playing. You've been picked to play a certain way. Don't, because you're now playing for England, playing a different way. Now, we also talked about if we got bowled out in 38 overs, playing positive, aggressive cricket, we didn't care. It wasn't about batting the 50 overs anymore. It was about being aggressive. Now, you need a bit of luck in sport, and I don't care what level you play at, you need a bit of luck. And that first international at Edgbaston, we were 200 for 6 after 20 overs. So we picked a brand new team. A lot of people from the World Cup had been put to one side. We picked a brand new team. Our coach had been removed. So I was looking after things until Trevor Bayliss came. And we were 200 for 6 after 30 overs. Now, we could have easily been bowled out for 230, 240, and everyone would have said, nothing's changed, same old England, pick new players, but nothing's changed. And Joe Root had got a good score out of that 200 as well. And Jos Buttler was joined by Adil Rashid. Adil Rashid was coming back into the England team after a few years out. His second scoring shot, he hit Nathan McCullum, bowling off spin. He hit him straight down the ground for 6. Rash got 60 odd, 67, 65 in that innings. And that's still his highest one-day score for England. And Jos Buttler at the other end just exploded and got one of the most unbelievable hundreds I've ever seen. We got 400 for the first time ever. England got 400 in ODI. Liam Plunkett hit 2 of the last 3 balls for 6 over deep mid-wicket. Last ball, he just knocked it to mid-wicket for a cheeky little not out, which I give him stick about still to this day. But we got 400, 407 I think we got. And we bowled New Zealand out and we won the game convincingly. And everyone said, the new England's born, fantastic. Look at the way that they're playing. A lot of plaudits for Morgs, you know, brilliant. But actually, we were 200 for 6 with 20 overs to go. We could have been bowled out for 230, 240. We lost the next game in a run chase at the Oval. Brilliant, high-scoring game. We then got bowled out in 43 overs at the Rose Bowl, at the Ageas Bowl. We got bowled out in 43 overs. And the media climbed into us and said, you should never, ever be in a position where you don't bat your overs in 50-over cricket. And we both said in the media afterwards, we didn't care. We didn't care about not batting our overs. We were really pleased with the intent that we showed. And all we kept talking about was playing with good intent. Play with good intent. Play for the team. Play good intent. Bowlers, we want you to bowl fast. Rash, we want you to spin it. We're not worried about you bowling dot balls. We want you to take wickets. If David Willey took 2 wickets up front with a new ball, Liam Plunkett bounced somebody out in the middle of the overs, Mo got a wicket, Rash got a couple in the middle. It meant that the opposition only had 2 or 3 wickets going to the last 10. So they couldn't hurt you, couldn't take the game away from you in the last 10, which is something that happened a lot in that previous World Cup. So we decided that everything we did, we were going to be on the front foot. We then went to Nottingham. We were 2-1 down in the series. We went to Nottingham. We chased down 350, got them for 3 with 7 overs to spare. It was unbelievable batting. It was just absolutely sensational to watch. Root and Morgan played brilliantly. We went to the last game 2-2 when everybody said, it doesn't matter if you don't win this game. It doesn't matter if you don't win the series because you played brilliant cricket. It did matter. It mattered huge. We had to win that series. And we played a rain-affected game. Johnny Bairstow got 70-odd, got us over the line, won the game. It was brilliant. But Owen Morgan in that game, in a run chase, got caught deep mid-wicket first ball. And in many ways, what he did in that single act was to show to his players that the way that he was playing was backing up the way that he was talking. There was no recriminations. Nobody came off to anybody shouting at them or telling them they picked the wrong option. It was all about taking a chance, playing positive cricket, and let's see where we can get to. And as I say, for 15, 18 months, that's how we went. And then the second part of that is that we lost the semi-final of the ICC Champions Trophy in Cardiff to Pakistan. And after the game, we didn't spend any time talking about why we'd lost the game. We spent all the time in the change room that evening as a group with everyone sat round talking about how we were going to cope with being the favourites going into the World Cup in 2019 in England. Because that was a dress rehearsal. There we were in England. We played great cricket for 2 years. We won a lot of games home and away. We were on a brilliant run. I think we won 10 successive series. And all the media were talking us up as though we were the favourites. We were going to win this 2017 tournament, which Pakistan ended up being India in the final at the Oval. And so rather than focusing on why we lost the game, we focused completely on dealing with the pressure in 2019 of being the favourites. We wanted to go into that World Cup as number 1 or number 2. So it meant we were going to be a favourite. We wanted to carry on playing this fantastic brand of cricket. But what we decided that from that moment on, we were going to talk up, which is very un-English. We were going to talk up our chances of winning the World Cup. And we were not going to talk about great to be involved in a World Cup. We were talking about, isn't it a brilliant time and a brilliant opportunity to win the World Cup in our own country, in front of our own public, and do it that way. What a brilliant way to do it. So we talked up. So we enjoyed the pressure that came with being number one. We enjoyed the pressure of being the host nation and everything that came with it. And we spoke to other sports. We spoke to Stuart Lancaster, who'd been coaching the England rugby team when they'd had a previous home rugby World Cup. And he said that they divorced themselves away from the country. They didn't get involved in the tournament. And that was something he felt really strongly about. So we decided as a group, we'd enjoy the World Cup. We'd talk up being favourites. We'd enjoy the pressure of being favourites, which meant we had to build up a lot of resilience as a team, that if things, you know, and we had a game at Lords against South Africa. We were 20 for 5. We had a game in Adelaide against Australia. We were 12 for 4. And people said, you're playing the wrong way. You can't keep playing that way. And we were saying, no, we're fine. We know where we're going. We're tracking well. We're playing well. All our little key performance indicators that we've set along the way, we're ticking them. We're going nicely. And we're still trying to get better. We're still trying to be the best that we can possibly be. Even though we're number one in the world, we want to keep improving. We're not settling on, we're doing okay. We really want to be the best. And I think that was a massive turning point. That evening in Cardiff was a massive turning point for that team. And as I say, you know, they built up a great amount of resilience. They built up a great amount of mental character, mental strength. And when they needed it, you know, they were struggling for a couple of weeks in that World Cup. And there was a lot of talk about they're going to be knocked out. And then they went on the run of winning 4 successive games, last 2 in the group, the semi-final and the final. And, you know, now the trophy belongs to England, which is a fantastic achievement for them.
Fantastic. And you spoke really well about the media there. And I remember watching games saying, commentators, ex-players saying, you know, they're chasing 400. They're chasing 400. And when it came off, it was magnificent. And every time it didn't come off, it was they're playing too aggressive. Do they need to settle down? And it showed over the years that they really did stick to what they wanted to stick to. And I guess that really shows the resilience as a team, not just individually, because cricket at certain elements, at certain times, is very individual sport. When you stood batting against the bowler, you're on your own. And to see the resilience as a side is fascinating as well.
Absolutely. I've said many times that Owen Morgan should take the greatest amount of credit for England winning that World Cup, because Owen Morgan, right from the very start, had a view in his head of how he wanted the team to play. He was very set on that. But what he did was that he continued to play the way that he spoke. And that's not easy. That's really not. We've all talked about playing attacking cricket. We've all talked about being positive. And Adil Rashid, in many ways, sums up England's journey through that World Cup. At the start of that 4-year period, Adil Rashid was someone who Morgs used to hide around the corner at 45 for the spinner, or, you know, he'd stick him at fine leg or whatever. And partly because Rash didn't really want the ball to come to him. And after a while, we all encouraged Rash to attack every single ball. Attack. And if you miss field, we'll take responsibility. If you pick it up and throw the stumps down, you take all the credit. And that's how we approach Rash. And we talk to him about that all the time. Along with his 10 overs that he bowled, 4 for 80 was his goal every single time. Now, if you'd have said to anybody, you go for 80 runs in a 50-over game, well, it's quite expensive. But we were saying to Rash, 4 for 80 every time you bowl. If you take 4 wickets with your 10 overs in the middle of the innings, it will mean that the opposition have got very few wickets left in the last 10 overs. And Rash not only bowled brilliantly throughout that World Cup, but he bowled brilliantly for England for 4 years. And he is probably the most improved fielder in that England team. And that was all down to, as I say, Owen Morgan's belief and trust in Rash, and actually throwing him the ball when others wouldn't have done, backing him to bowl when others wouldn't have done, but never putting him under any pressure as a captain and saying to him, right, I want you to do this. He used to say to Rash, what's your best ball? What's your best ball? How are you going to get him out? And he'd say, I'm going to do it. Right, brilliant, you do it. And if it didn't come off, he never shouted at him. He never criticised him, never got cross with him. And it's no surprise that Adil Rashid has played his best cricket under Owen Morgan, throughout his entire career. There is absolutely no doubt. And as I say, I'm a huge believer that Owen Morgan singly was the most responsible, along with Trevor Bayliss, because Trevor Bayliss and Owen Morgan, their relationship as captain coach, and all of you that coach or play, you will see this. The captain coach relationship is absolutely vital, and it doesn't matter at what level you're at. The captain coach relationship is vital. And you had a strong leader who spoke and was a good leader. Didn't speak a lot, but Morgs, when he spoke, it meant something and it counted. And then you had Trevor Bayliss, who was a very strong supporter as a coach, but was very happy for Morgs to be the leader. So there was no ego. There was no clash of, I want to be the one to tell the team. I want to be the one to take the credit. Neither took the credit. Both gave all the credit to the players, but both gave the players an awful lot of support. And again, that takes a very strong-minded character to be able to do that.
Yeah, fantastic again, Paul. And would it be possible, I mean, got a few more minutes left, would it be possible to open it to the floor for a couple of questions?
Of course, no problem at all. Absolutely, no problem at all.
Guys, if anybody wants to ask a question, maybe put it in the group chat. I think Brad Stadden from IJC has got a question for you, so I'll just unmute Brad.
Hi, Paul. Can you hear me?
Hi, Brett. How are you? Good to meet you.
Good, thanks. Good, thanks. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us as a group. As you can see on the chat room, there's a lot of us here that are very eager to hear from you from far and wide. First of all, a lot of my questions have been answered as you've been speaking. You were talking about the period from the 2015 World Cup up to the 2019 World Cup, going from ranked 7th to ranked number 1. And obviously, that just doesn't happen. Now, you've been speaking about resilience, and I wanted to ask you, how did you tie in resilience? Because, first of all, obviously, as a group, staff, management, and players, you all didn't wake up one morning and decide, right, this is the brand of cricket we're going to play. So in terms of resilience, building a mentally tough team, because to go from where they went in 2015 up to 2019 wasn't all just about the technical stuff, but I'm sure it was about culture and as well as the mental side of the game as well. And you mentioned Gary Balance being one person as an individual, and you spoke about Morgs, how he operated. I was lucky enough to work with him a couple of months ago, him and Adil at the same time. And at the time when I did work with them, regardless of just winning a World Cup, in the group, they were the ones that were the most keen to learn at the time as well. Even though they've just come for a World Cup campaign, they were constantly asking questions. But across the platform, how did you get them all to buy into this process, this plan that was going to take you down the road to a World Cup victory in 2019?
Well, I think, and I can tell you there's some experience of getting it wrong. And let me tell you that, I'm sitting here sounding like that, I know the answers and great, I've been involved in successful stuff. I've also made some horrendous mistakes. So, I've been sacked once as a coach in county cricket because I made too many mistakes and I was too passionate. I cared too much about the team that I was coaching and I took it very personally. So, making mistakes and learning and getting things wrong as a player and a coach, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the best players are prepared to do that. And so the answer to your question is, if you're going to get a team to buy into any plan, every individual needs to understand what their part in that plan is. So the best way to sell any team plan is to make sure that you've got every individual understanding the plan first and foremost. And I'll give you an example of that. Trevor Bayliss and I spent a lot of time talking to individuals and being really clear with them what their plan was, what their role was in the team. And then when we started coming to team meetings, and we didn't have too many team meetings in the first 18 months, we did away with them. And then when we started having them, we called them team chats because the word meeting frightened a few of our lads. They didn't like the idea of a meeting. So we started talking about having team chats, and sometimes they were in very informal situations. But what they started to do is in those team chats, they started to bring the conversations that we'd had with them individually into those chats. So we didn't have to say, this is what we need our middle order to do. They started saying, this is what I think I need to do. This is what I think my role is in the middle. And we were like, absolutely brilliant. So they felt that they had ownership of their role and of their position in that team, which is a brilliant way to be. And I'll give you another great example. Trevor and I used to chuckle away to ourselves. We'd read the media the day after a game. So you'd be in a hotel, we'd be, reading the papers, or we'd be on our iPads reading stuff that they'd said online. And the players started using phrases that we'd been having in our changing room. And they started talking about their views. And we started smiling, saying, this is great, because they're actually telling one another the conversations that we've been having. Now they're telling the wider world that these are the conversations we're having, without saying, this is what Trevor said to me. So it was dropping messages in subtly to them in a net situation, over a coffee, breakfast, dinner, whenever it might be. So that for me, the best way to get any team message across is to make sure each individual understands their role. When they do that, you've then got a great chance of taking that forward as a team.
Thanks, Paul. Makes absolute sense. I mean, sometimes you try to have a team message in a team meeting and it comes out generic, and someone might take the message on board and someone might get lost in translation.
Absolutely. Well, if and I'll give you a great example. Your point is absolutely right. And I'll give you a great example. When we started talking about positive cricket, if we had 15 players in that changing room and we were talking the day before an ODI at Trent Bridge, say, and Trevor and I were talking about positive cricket to one would have meant something different to somebody else. So how one person interpreted the word positive, another person interpreted that differently. So for us, a positive approach to fielding wasn't picking the ball up one-handed off balance. It was attacking the ball, but it was also wanting the ball to come to you and understanding, again, where you're fielding. Trevor was big on this. The best way to be the best fielder you can be is understand when you're in a position, what are you there for? How's the ball going to come to you? What sort of technique are you going to have to use? And then you get used to the ball coming to you. So you actually, if you're a deep square leg against Rash, there's a fair chance that they're either going to sweep it at you or it's going to be a long hop they're going to pull at you. So you see the cues from the ball being bowled, you've already got your mind switched on. The bad fielders, the poor fielders, are the people that don't actually engage themselves in the game. And they don't think about how the ball's going to come to them. And then they're startled and they make a brilliant diving stop. And say, oh, that was great, but actually they didn't need to. They could have stayed on their feet. So for me, that's another great example of actually thinking about what positive cricket is. Positive cricket is even before the ball's delivered, I'm ready. I'm a deep square leg. This is how the ball's going to come to me. These are the shots they're going to play. And these are the techniques I'm going to have to use to do it. And then when it happens, you react, you're instinctive, and off you go. And that, again, that was a massive Trevor Bayliss thing.
Cricket is like how you pointed out, saying to Rash, in 10 overs, you're doing your job, and someone else would have perceived that as, well, that's not good cricket. But in the retrospect of things, it was a greater part of a team plan, backing up your batsman, knowing he's picking up 4 for 80, but the rest of the bowlers could probably clean it up towards the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as the chats went on, we started then sharing what people's roles were within the team. And so when Rash said, my job is to get 4 for 80 and take wickets, everyone was saying, oh, yeah, great. So when he then got 4 for 80, everyone said, well done, Rash, brilliant, fantastic. And that, that's, as I say, I think that's the best way to get any team message across. It is to actually do it individually, make sure everyone understands their role in the team. Thanks, Brad. Great questions. Thank you.
Paul, we've just got another one from Charles. Guys, we won't unfortunately be able to have time to answer all of them, but we'll do our best to answer a few. Any that might come through after, I'll be able to send to Paul, and maybe we get a little video clip of a response or some writing maybe. So
yeah, very happy to do that. Very happy.
So we've got one here from Charles Thompson. Charles said, can you list down a few steps to build resilience from the base up?
Well, I go back to what I said earlier. I think it's about, you know, if Charles is a coach, then I think it's about him understanding the players that he's working with and work out what sort of resilience they have already got, work out what sort of character they are, what type of person they are. And it might be that, you know, it could be you're working with a young player who's got a lot of ability, practices brilliantly, but perhaps plays within themselves in a game situation. So you've got to find a way of bringing it out of them. It might be it's the other way around, that they've got all the shots and deliveries, but they're not quite sure when to bring them into play. So the resilience part of that is making sure that you shape their practice to allow them to develop their game and understand that. So I think talking about it, chatting about it, and actually understanding the person is your best way to build their base. Really understand and find out what's every player's got fears and frailties, and I don't care who they are in the world, every single player. And I'll give you one great example. Sanath Jayasuriya, 400 ODIs, 100 test matches. He wanted as much love from us as coaches as anybody else in that team. Absolutely. And that wasn't, it wasn't, I don't mean needy, but he wanted reassurance. He wanted you to tell him what he was doing was okay. And he wanted you to tell him that, and sometimes it's really easy to look at your team and you look at an experienced player and you think, he doesn't need anything from me, he knows what he's doing. Absolutely nonsense. Every player needs something from you. You just got to find out what it is. So find out what it is, find out about the person, and then you can start to put your building blocks in place from there on in.
And we've got one more, Paul. We'll go with Akshat, who's a young under 15s batsman for RJC. Why is there a difference in performance while batting in the nets compared to batting in the middle, and how can we work on that?
Fantastic. Great question. Well, I think the first thing you can do is make your net as real as possible. So I'd take you back to Mark Ramprakash's point. Practice hard, play easy. So set your net up in a way that actually, and Ramps used to do this with England players and they hated it. If you get out, come out, take your pads off, take all your kit off and have a drink, and then put your pads back on again and go back in and have another go. And they hated it. They absolutely hated it. They didn't want, and we actually spent time. We got to the stage where 2 days out from a test match, the 2 day out was the coach's day, a day out from the test match was the player's day. And that 2 days out was when we started introducing the yellow balls, where we put them through things that perhaps they didn't really want to do. So you can play any net situation that you're in, and any practice situation you're in. Put yourself under the pressure of it being a game. So actually think about how you're going to play a game. Don't just go into a net and hit loads of balls and come out and say, yeah, okay, I feel great. Actually, ask the bowlers to bowl properly at you. Ask them maybe to bowl a bit closer. Bowl off 20 yards. You know, provided it's safe, provided the pitches are good and the coaches are looking after that session so it doesn't get out of hand. But put yourself under pressure. Put yourself in a position where you're actually looking at the bowler that's running into bowl at you in a game situation. Ask them to set a field. Ask them to bowl how they would bowl in a game. Ask the coach to set a field when he throws at you with the flicker, and ask him to set you match situations. So there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, 24 balls left, you're 8 down, you're 47 not out, the team need 18, and if you get out, bloke out the other end, you get out twice, game over. And another little game that I've used, which I absolutely love, and I pinch from another coach, I sometimes say to players, they say, I want to go and have a hit. Okay, I'll throw at you, and I'll throw at you for half an hour. But if I get 6 points, your net finishes. And 1 point for hitting you on the pad, 1 point for playing a miss, and 2 points for genuinely getting you out, nicked off or bowled. And if I get as soon as I get 6 points, your net's over. And if that finishes after 10 minutes, out you come. But if you bat the 30 minutes, then I'll throw you for 30 minutes. And it's just a way sometimes of getting them to think about a game situation, put them in the situation of a game. And I think the more you can do that as a player and shape your practice, there are some days where it's just about hitting balls or catching balls or bowling balls. But the more you can put yourself in the pressure situation of having something on the line every time you practice, the more you get out of it. And then the key is actually having the honesty at the end of that session with your coach to talk about how you went. And then you can talk about your decision making. So it's not just about hitting the ball or bowling the ball. You can talk about decision making. You can talk about your thought process. So as a bowler, I'm going to bowl 6 balls at this batsman, and I know I can get him out by dragging him across the stump. So I'm going to bowl off stump, 4th stump, 4th stump, 5th stump. I'm going to drag him across. Then I'm going to bowl me in swinger, hit him on the pad. And your decision-making conversation is going to be, you bowled your in swinger after 3 balls. Was that enough balls to get your batsman across the crease? No, it wasn't. So you can straight away, you can learn your decision-making, you can improve your decision-making, as well as improving your game and your technique and your resilience in any practice session if you want to.
Thanks, Paul. Listen, Paul, obviously your time is very precious at the moment, and we really appreciate it. I just want to say it's been a fantastic, genuine insight into high performance, not just around resilience, but the whole side of the game. There's lessons to be learned for all of us. So it's been absolutely fantastic. I'd love to take the opportunity to say a huge thanks on behalf of everybody and Infinite Sports and It's Just Cricket. So thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining in, listening. And any other questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. So whether that's, on the chat, whether it's sending something back on video, if you're happy to coordinate that, then I'm happy to answer any question that you got. Absolutely no problem at all. I don't want anyone going away saying, I didn't get a chance to ask me a question. You might not get the answer that you want, but I'm more than happy to give any answers that you need.
Thanks, Paul. I think what we'll do is we'll formulate some sort of list of questions that we can maybe flick over to you. That would be absolutely outstanding.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And thanks all. Have a good afternoon or evening.
Cheers, Paul. Thank you.
Cheers.